Hi and welcome. Thank you for joining me here again today. So you may have seen over the past 3 days, I've been doing a series of videos on how to reverse diabetes naturally, the type of foods you should be eating, and the essential fats and good starches that you can implement in your diet to help to lower your your metabolic rate. Now, today I've got something which might be a little bit shocking. And again, it's regarding pre-diabetes and diabetes, and that is the foods that contain low fats or the fats taken out. But before I do, I just want to mention that in our diet, we have essential foods like our amino acids and our fatty acids. Now, the amino acids are proteins, which go well for diabetes. And then we have the fatty acids. And these fatty acids can be made up of omega-3s, which go really well in terms of introducing it into a diabetic diet when we're looking at type 2. But today, let's go over the low-fat foods that we find in our superstores now, where the fats have been taken away. So it reduces the fat content, which seems really healthy, it seems really good. And there was a time, if you can remember, that there was a lot of foods that came out that became low sugar, low fat, and even low carb. Now, the thing about reducing the fat in the foods is that when they took out the fats, they then pushed up the carbs, because without the fats, you needed something else to substitute. So starches were added, which then pushes up your metabolic rate. And this could actually have a profound effect on the amount of diabetes sufferers that we see today, particularly pre-diabetes, which is equally on the rise. And I spoke to a lady today because, as I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm looking for people to work with who are seriously committed at wanting to reverse their diabetes. And I now have 6 places left. In fact, 5 places left since yesterday, and and people are booking rapidly. If you still want to book, and I am booked up, I can work with you at a later date, and you can go on a waiting list. They're booking up fast. So when we're taking out the fats from these processed foods, in go chemicals and in go starches. So it's just totally diabolical for anybody who is suffering with diabetes anyway, who's pre-diabetes. And did you know you could even be pre-diabetes, years if not decades, before you're diagnosed as a pre-diabetic? So that isn't good for anyone when we're eating a lot more starches in our foods that are being added now, because things have been branded as low fat and chemicals are added as well. And even top branded diet programs promote certain brands that have low fat foods. So this is like an experiment that happened to really tackle the obesity problem when it came to fat. But what we didn't realize is, with the amounts of carbs that are added, that's now pushed up people's blood sugar rates and caused a lot of insulin resistance. So how are we going to avoid this? Well, it's simple. Stop eating foods that are labeled as natural, because you know just by looking at what is natural, it's real food, it's whole food. And I've been giving lots of examples on each day about these types of foods. Now, we need our essential fatty acids and our amino acids, but nowhere do we actually need essentially carbohydrates. We can lower our carbohydrates, or we can do without our carbohydrates, because decades ago, we were living off very little carbohydrate. The carbohydrates that we did have were complex carbs. So we want to go back to eating these complex carbs in our diet, particularly fats, which are omega-3 fats rather than the unhealthy fats, because as you may have learned from watching these videos, fats do not actually affect our blood sugar. But with the risk of heart disease and stroke, we don't want to be eating the bad fats and saying, well, let's go back to eating our butter and, you know, high oily fats and things like that. We want the healthy omega-3 type fats. So I'm going to show you today just a few examples of what those omega-3 fats look like when it comes to our foods. And also I'm going to go over some of the healthy starches that you can introduce into your diet to replace rice and pastas and noodles. Now, just one thing to mention, when it comes to spelt, particularly whole wheat spelt, that's going to be a better type of carb, and I'll go over that later in the presentation that I'm going to show you. But let's start with the omega-3s, because this is a solutions channel and I provide solutions. And if you work with me, we're going to be making sure that you're going to be eating the type of foods that actually help to reverse diabetes. Now let's look at omega-3s. So we're starting off with something called chia seeds. Now you may have heard of chia seeds. It's a very versatile food. It can be used as an addition, and it's high in fiber and high in protein, and it contains several minerals and vitamins, and the seeds are one of the best known plant sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Flaxseed. Now here is the whole seed. You can find the milled flaxseed where it's broken down, but I would advise to get the whole flaxseed and grind it down to a powder if you want to use it in powder form yourself. Reason being is when you're buying these milled seeds, they're broken down to the point that, you know, they're starting to oxidate, they're losing some of their minerals, so you want to get them whole and then just break them down yourself. And it's actually cheaper to buy them in their whole form rather than having them pre-milled. So these are a good source of antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids, and they're low in carbs. They're also packed with fiber, making them filling and satisfying as well. And then we've got our humble avocado, because these are high in healthy fats, and in addition to being rich in monosaturated fats, and avocados are a good source of fiber. Right, well, I've talked about cruciferous vegetables, and cruciferous vegetables are excellent for type 2 diabetes. Cauliflower is a popular item on low carb diets, and it can be riced, used as an alternative grain substitute, and it can even be made into a low carb pizza crust, believe it or not. And I'm going to be coming online on the 2nd and 3rd, in fact pre-recorded on the 2nd and 3rd of June, because I won't be around for the bank holiday, but I'm going to be showing you some meal ideas, and I'll be doing a demo in one of them. But this is a great alternative, and you can use it as a pizza crust. Of course, it's a cruciferous vegetable, which is fantastic, and it's low in carbs and it's high in fiber with lots of vitamins and minerals. Then we've got our other cruciferous vegetable in the family of the cruciferous vegetables is broccoli, and although it's high in fiber and several essential vitamins and minerals, broccoli also boasts more protein than any other vegetables, and it can be enjoyed cooked or raw. But research tells us that steaming provides a greatest health benefits instead of having it raw, but you can actually break it down and have it raw as well if you're going on a raw food diet. Then we've got our purple cabbage. Now purple is a great cabbage instead of the white one because it's higher in plant compounds, and it has been linked to health benefits such as improved heart and bone health. It reduces inflammation, and it's protection against certain forms of cancer. It's also very low in carbs and it's high in fiber, which is an excellent source of vitamin C and vitamin K. Now here are the grains that I've been talking about, and bulgur wheat is one of the lowest carb grains available. This is excellent, and in one of my demos around on the 2nd and 3rd, I'm going to be doing a bulgur wheat couscous. Now yesterday I did a bulgur wheat rice and beans. In the Caribbean we call it rice and peas, which I infused with coconut. And have a look at that video yesterday where you'll see how you can actually use it as a versatile type rice with beans. But I'm going to be making a couscous, and I'm actually going to be grinding down the coarse bulgur wheat to save yourself some money, so you can grind it down to make yourself a fine bulgur wheat couscous. So this is rich in fiber. It's a really tasty alternative to rice. In fact, I love this more than rice itself. It's got a wonderful flavor, and when I give it an extra boost in taste by pan roasting it first before I use it. So it's great because it causes a less spike in blood sugar due to its high fiber content. And it's great in terms of if you wanted to even have it as a cereal. There's so many ways that you can use bulgur wheat. Now, remember I mentioned millet. New study shows that eating millet can reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So this is great as a preventative food, and it helps manage glucose levels in people with diabetes. It's great, again, in terms of making it versatile, and it's high in minerals and vitamins, which is a great addition to your diet, because when you're having to substitute foods or take out foods, just remember there's a whole host of foods out there that you may not be aware of that's available at your fingertips, and they are nutritious and they're balanced, and you can still lead a healthy, balanced diet and reverse diabetes too, and prevent it as well, eating these types of whole foods. Now remember I talked about pea pasta in a previous video, because we don't have to have, you know, the durum wheats and the semolina type pastas. We can have lentil pasta, we can have pea pasta as well. It's lower on the glycemic index. So, you know, be a bit more creative. Find out what other pastas are out there, but make sure you're reading the labels to make sure that the starch levels are not high. Now, I mentioned whole wheat spelt bread. Now, the difference between whole wheat spelt bread and spelt bread, which is in some of the brands, are highly processed. Now, even after milling, whole wheat maintains all of its fiber, whereas some whole wheats don't. So you're not getting the full fiber, and there's other ingredients added as well. It's great in terms of its high fiber content, and it also absorbs levels of sugar that go in with the ingredients when I'm making my bread. You can use less of the dried fruits, you could put seeds in them, but spelt bread in moderation is still a good alternative to white flour and conventional grains. So those are my suggested foods for today, and I wanted to touch on this, you know, this kind of fad of low fats. Just remember, when you're buying low-fat foods, it is processed to some degree. There are additives added, and then starches are added. And that's where you're going to get the high fiber content. And even if you think that you're not susceptible to diabetes, think again, because there are many of us that are what you call pre-diabetic. And we can be that much away from being pre-diabetic. And it can take years, it can take decades to reach to pre-diabetes. But once you get there, it's so easy to become type 2. So prevention is definitely the way to go. And also, if you're struggling and you really just don't know what else to do, and you don't want to continue on medication or start medication, get in touch. Click the link below and we can have a phone call to find out whether you're a good fit to start my reversing diabetes program. Thank you for watching today. I think there's a comment on here, so I'll just see who's online. So Tyra says, this is awesome information. And Charmaine, good evening all. Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on the live today. I mentioned that on the bank holiday, 2nd and 3rd, I won't be live, but I'm going to be pre-recording some videos where I'm going to be doing some food demos. So tune in and watch, and I'll see you again tomorrow at 6 o'clock to bring you more information and health tips. And this time I'm going to be talking a lot more on diabetes because it's on the rise, and we can also be preventative too. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again at 6 o'clock tomorrow.